Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Daisy Trowbridge on the podcast, coming to us all the way from sunny Florida. Don't even get me started, people. I mean, we're still in the dead of winter here in Minnesota. Here to share her health and fitness journey with us, and just talk about her journey. I think that she'd be a really great guest to have on. She was recommended to us by Kelly Lynn. Everyone can remember her from about 100 or so podcasts back. But most importantly, Daisy's our current guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, I got to get this out of the way first off, and it's going to depress everyone that's in my climate, but what is the weather like in Florida today?
It is beautiful and sunny today.
What's the temperature like?
It's about up in the 80s. It's a little hot, actually, but the breeze is perfect for it.
So literally 2 days ago at night, it reached -22.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's 21 right now, which is a little bit warmer-ish than it should be, but yeah, we had like 2 weeks ago, we had the anniversary of the polar vortex last year where it was -70 with the wind chill up here.
Wow.
Where if you were outside for more than 90 seconds without anything covered, you would get frostbite. And I worked outside for that time, so I had to wear 5 layers, and that was the worst night of my life. Like it was, I don't even before I even get everyone depressed with all of our winter woes, because believe me, they are vast. And the fact that our winter lasts for at least another good 2 months is just, I mean, don't even get me started. But before I bring the whole mood of the podcast down right before it even gets started, why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory and what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and start to adapt this lifestyle?
Okay. Basically the fitness and stuff, I kind of was into it in high school, but I was never actually active because I was working a lot in high school. At the time, I had a lot of friends that inspired me, and I watched them from afar and, kind of learned from them. And then I went into the army for about 3 years. And I actually tore the tendon in my hip, so I had to take about a year off, and I got out on that. And about a couple months after getting out, I got really bored in the gym after I had fully recovered and everything. I was where I wanted to be, but I didn't know where else to take it. And then my coach, Dan, um, he actually was correcting my form on my tricep extensions. And he was with a girl, I don't remember her name, but he was training her, and I was like, wow, she is gorgeous. She's so fit. I want to be just like her. And she was a bikini competitor as well. So I was like, wow, this is crazy. So then a couple weeks later, like I thought about it, and then I finally reached out to my coach, and I was like, what's it going to take to get me here? What can I do? And ever since then, we've been on this journey together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love hearing those stories, and going into your journey though. I mean, I always say whenever someone gets started in the gym, I mean, it's hard for people to realize what works best for their body as opposed to what works best for someone else, because like the saying goes, if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. What was that journey like for you, I should say, when it comes to figuring out what works best for you? Because if you were to, like you said, if you were to walk up to that bikini girl that you thought looked really amazing and say, oh, what'd you work for your arms or for your abs? They look amazing. What works best for her 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you.
That's 100% true. For me, before I was with my coach, I thought I knew, everything because I had done my own research and I thought I knew this and that, but come to find out, I knew nothing compared to what I know now. Um, at first, I was in a calorie deficit for a long time, so my metabolic rate was just destroyed when I first started my prep. It was horrible. But now I am eating so much more often. Um, it's changed a lot. Um, I mean, being from calorie deficit to what I'm at now, around like the calories that I'm at is super, super high. It's my body, like I thought I would gain a lot of weight, but I ended up losing weight and gaining muscle. And that was very surprising for me. And my favorite part is watching how I've been responding to everything because I did not expect this at all. I didn't expect to get this far with it.
Well, I always say too, you're sort of like a mad scientist where you're like concocting your own potion and figuring out what works best for you. I mean, it's so much trial and error with this lifestyle, which is one thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially, people in our generation where everyone wants everything now and they want it yesterday, where it's like, no, this is gonna be definitely a lifestyle where you're really gonna have to work for it and you're really gonna have to make adjustments. But a question that I love to ask too, because everyone's genetics are different, and I mean, especially in this day and age where with Instagram and all this social media where people look at other people's images and they say, oh, I want this body part of hers, or I want this body part of his. People don't realize that you can only be the best version of yourself. And that plays a lot into the genetics because I always say whenever someone first walks into the gym, they always have that one body part that really, really responds well, that they don't have to train as much. And they always have that one body part that just lags behind, they have to train into oblivion. I mean, I'll give you my examples first. I had jobs all throughout college of working in warehouses. So, you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those are basically the two options that were presented to you. But I'm also 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just shot where, I mean, I have to train them into overdrive just to get them to look like any semblance like I've lifted them a day in my life. Calves are the worst. I always said I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't gain an ounce. It's just a never ending journey for me. I still have friends to this day at the gym who, when I walk in, they say, oh, hey, Ryan, you plan on working legs anytime this year? And it's like, dude, you saw me train them yesterday. Come on. Yeah, I know the horror and the pain that I have to go through every time I walk into that gym. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
Definitely my legs. Uh, I struggled really, really bad building my legs up, and that took a really long time. But the easiest part for me was my biceps and my shoulders. That was probably the easiest. And when I first started, I was doing a lot of like arms were probably my favorite day, so I was hitting those twice a week. So my upper body was actually a little too big for bikini, so I had to size down a lot. But my legs were the target where I had to grow. I had a lot of room to grow.
How hard was that to let go of the biceps every once in a while? Because for me too, that was like where I developed biceps so much that it was like disproportionately bigger where I had to stop training them. And that was hard for me. Was that hard for you to just sort of lay off them for a while?
Oh yeah. It's still hard. It's my favorite thing to train because you get the instant pump, you get, the strength in general just from being able to curl like, your max weight every time. Like it feels so good. And then now I have to do really, really high reps for my arms to size them down. And that itself, like having to drop the weight to do that was hurt my pride.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I have to do the same thing too. And I mean, for me, it's one of the easiest lifts to do because, I mean, you don't really strain as, I don't know. For me, it's just, that's the one lift where I know if I'm doing arms today, I was like, oh, it's going to be an easy workout. I could get like zero amount of sleep and I'd still probably be able to do an arm workout where it's like most of the time you need that. But that also leads me perfectly into sleep because I always say one of my favorite guests that I ever had on this podcast, he was the number one sleep specialist on the planet, called all the way from the UK. He was from Oxford. First off, he had one of those British accents where you felt like you gained 10 IQ points just from talking to him. Where I even told him, I was like, you're just gonna talk the entire time and I'm just gonna listen because literally it was just like it was a workout for my brain just hearing him talk. Like he would say like vitamins, and it was like, dude, it was like I was like, oh, it was just so great. But we talked about the importance of sleep, and I mean, if you're in the health and fitness lifestyle, sleep is 10 times more important for you. I mean, just because it is the number one thing when it comes to recovery. It might be the most important thing overall, just because it is so important. But so many people have different experiences when it comes to sleep, when it comes to, getting that proper amount of sleep. Have you struggled at all when it comes to sleep? And if you don't, I mean, what do you like to do in order to get that proper amount of sleep? Because, I mean, especially that you're getting ready to compete now, I mean, sleep is your number one best friend.
Well, uh, trying to get enough sleep is really, really hard. I work an hour away and working full time. I lose 2 hours of my day just driving. So, um, sleep it's been really hard, honestly, for the past couple weeks because my cardio's gone up and my workouts are a little bit longer. I'm more fatigued now, getting closer to competition. So that itself makes my workouts longer. So getting home, meal prepping for the next day, all of that is just it makes it hard to find time to sleep, but I try to get at least 6 hours. I try to shoot for more, but six is pretty much what I've been getting for the past couple weeks.
Yeah, the worst experience that I ever had with that was when I was in college and I pulled an all-nighter and I thought, hey, I'm not going to get my workout in because I'm probably going to be too tired, so why don't I just go and do it at like 6 a.m.? Worst mistake of my life. I got about 20 minutes in and then I was like, okay, I can't do this. Like it was bad. So that was my introduction to, getting that proper amount of sleep in order to get your workouts in. But when we're talking about this health and fitness lifestyle, so many people don't understand that the working out, like we discussed this right before we started recording, that the working out is, 10% at most of this lifestyle. I mean, the nutrition is vastly the most important thing. It's probably like 80% of it. And then the other 10% is just, your sleep and just getting that proper amount of rest. But what would you say is probably the biggest nutritional change that you made when you really started to take things seriously in the gym?
Um, how often I ate. Because before I was skipping meals, I was, the calorie deficit. I mean, I was trying to fast. I was trying to I mean, I did, look fit. I did have that going, but I just wasn't healthy. I had no energy. Now I'm very, very energetic. My moods is better. My workouts are so, so much better. I mean, it's so much better. And the food itself, like I enjoy meal prepping. I enjoy how simple it is for me.
Yeah. Well, and it's always nice to get that done. Like maybe on like a Sunday or something like that, you get the whole week's worth done, so you don't really have to worry about that. But has it gotten hard for you to just adjust to the fact that I mean you are going to be eating a lot of times the same food over and over again? Have there been any ways that you've tried to mix things up so that you aren't getting just so used to it and kind of like the blandness? Because that's one thing that we deal with a lot on the podcast is a lot of people just after eating that chicken for the same amount of time, just over and over, it just gets hard for them. What's that experience been like for you?
Um, it at first it was hard. It was hard eating the same thing every day, not indulging myself in my treats and everything. But along with that, I have found ways to enjoy my chicken and my meals. I love hot sauce. I mean, loads and loads of hot sauce, and I did not like that before. Cajun seasoning on all my chicken. Uh, Trying to mix it up with different flavors like lemons and, limes and just anything I can do. I've been trying to do it.
Yeah, it is. It's a struggle, but yeah, anything. I mean, I always said mustard is the most shocking thing that I learned on this podcast because a lot of bodybuilders like to use mustard just because it zero in calories, zero in fat. And I always said, if you have to do that, you might want to reevaluate your life. Because I mean, I was a team ketchup guy all the way. But a quick little tangent right before we keep going on. You have one of the best posters of all time, or the little things behind you where it says, "I promise to still grab your butt even when we're old and wrinkly." I've been trying my hardest throughout this podcast to not mention that, but I have to mention now because that's awesome. So I have to give props to that. I mean, I have a friend who has their whole house is lined up with crap like that too. So it's yeah, I that gave me that made me think of her. So yeah, that's an awesome thing, and that's a great message too. Yeah. So anyone out there, yeah, definitely look into stuff like that because and we have that all over my house too. I mean, I'm still with my parents for the next couple of months, and yeah, we have a ton of that. But going on to the podcast, I mean, I told you before, I love to bust myths and stereotypes on this podcast. It's probably my number one favorite thing to do, and the number one stereotype. And again, we talked about this before we started recording, but it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram. But there's still so many women who unfortunately have that fear where if I walk in the gym and I do one curl, I do anything that has to do with anything weights, I'm just going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And, first of all, I want to have that type of confidence where if I walk into the gym and I think that I'm going to get that big, because that type of confidence, I mean, I could conquer the world with that confidence. And, secondly, though, it is just so not true. I mean, just the amount of mistake that has, I mean, not the amount of mistake, but just the amount of ignorance that has. But it's obviously they don't mean it when they say it, but it's just so not true. And I always said I would, give you my phone number and I would pay you my life saving just to train with you once then if that really did happen to you. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time now. How do you like to respond to that?
Um, at the beginning, I was afraid to hit chest because I didn't want to lose my breast, but I had gotten over the fear when I had talked to some girls that were weightlifters, and they looked phenomenal, and they still had their breasts and all of that. But I used to have an ex that actually would just, I mean, he would bash me for how fit I was getting, and it put that fear in me that I would eventually look like a man. But then the more educated I got, I realized it was so far from the truth. And it actually just like after we had separated and I had started doing my own thing and started getting, fit, and I looked nothing like a man. I look very girly and very feminine still, and I absolutely love it. And I wish I could educate the girls. And when the girls say that to me, or my friends, or anything, or anyone really, I just tell them like, just try it. Uh, it definitely won't happen overnight, even if it did, and you look like that. And I keep it real with them, and I tell them, if you look like a man and you are a girl, it's probably because you're not doing it the right way.
And you're doing a little things extra. I'll just leave it at that too. I mean, that's the number one. Yeah, that's you know, that's a whole different podcast in and of itself. But yeah, that's well. I gotta ask too. So your former boyfriend, did he lift at all or do anything exercise wise?
He did lift. He actually we started lifting together, and he had gotten to the point where he would he made fun of me and stuff, so I stopped going with him. But he lifted, but he wasn't very consistent with it. So I guess he didn't. I should have known at the time, but I was very naive and very young at the time.
That's weird too because for the vast majority of those cases, they're guys that have never touched a weight in their entire lives, and they're just like jealous that they're seeing results. So, but yeah, I mean, if he wasn't that consistent, so yeah, that sucks that you had to deal with that because it has been getting a lot more positive, but yeah, there still are the negative aspects that happen with any. I always find it funny where it's like in this culture, if you were to fat shame someone for being overweight, you get torn apart. But if you were to, especially women with muscles, I mean, guys with muscles, they never get really made fun of for muscles unless it's like their friends just like teasing them. But if you were to make fun of a woman with muscles and say, "Oh, she looks manly, she looks like a man," you're not going to receive nearly as much of the backlash, if you receive any backlash at all. And I just find that funny, where if you make some fun of someone for choosing, or not necessarily choosing, but for someone for letting themselves go, it's such a bad thing. But if you make fun of someone for taking care of themselves, I mean, that's somehow allowed. So if we could change one thing about our culture, that would definitely be one thing that I'd want. And that's why I love having these guests on our podcast. Just prove it's like, hey, why is it okay to make fun of them, but it's not okay to make fun of other. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But one thing that I love to add on to that question, because I think it impacts women so much more positively than it does men, is the confidence boost. Because some guys are already cocky enough as it is when they go to the gym, but for women especially, I mean, we've heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who have been able to make life-changing decisions. It's helped them maybe be a little bit more assertive, or it's just helped them better their overall life. And I always say that's the one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact your life is the confidence boost. How have you taken that from your journey and used it to impact your life for the better?
My confidence has gone up like through the roof since I've started weightlifting. It was insane. I used to be very, very insecure and just very hidden from the world, I guess you could say. But now I'm just like I don't care who else is in the room. I don't compare myself to anybody anymore. I try to be my own hero now, and it's really awesome. Like I wish I could just take the confidence I have and I've gained from this and just give it to everybody else because it is life changing. It's the confidence, the independency that you get from it, the discipline. I mean, all of it together is just a whole nother world.
Now, a trend that I found with some of the competitors that I have on is that they have, either prior military experience. Do you think that that at all helped you when it comes to the dedication that you need to have for bodybuilding? Because I mean, the military, that's a hard enough lifestyle as it is. Do you think that that helped you overall prepare for this lifestyle of bodybuilding?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has helped my discipline and my consistency and my commitment. 100%.
Yeah, we had one of the most impressive guests I've ever had on, and she's just about to turn 60, and she was a bodybuilder, not just a figure of bikini competitor, like a bodybuilder. And she was in the military for her whole life, and yeah, just the dedication. So that's why I always love to ask that for past service members, because yeah, I really do think. I mean, I have a few friends that are ex-servicemen, and yeah, they have that discipline where they're getting up at like 5 a.m., and I'm just like, dude, you're either gonna have to chase me with a knife to get me up that early, but they just have that ingrained in them. But so yeah, that's awesome. But one of the biggest things that I never understood until I started this podcast is that for so many of these athletes, posing is the hardest thing for them. I mean, we hear so many stories where it's harder than your working out, it's harder than your nutrition. I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver. You can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Trying to pose it was very hard at the beginning. 'Cause there was a lot to it. There's so much to it, and it has to be as perfect as you can get it, because the smallest thing can just dock and just mess up your entire routine. Uh, Trying to pose on my own was really difficult. Kelly, my coach, she was really awesome. She helped reassure me that I was doing everything right. She helped keep me there and on the right path, and that was really awesome. Now I'm just trying to find my actual routine and like pretty much perfect the little tiny details at this point because I've gotten pretty much most of it down. But I think it's very important to be consistent when practicing it just as much as you're training and you're eating.
Well, one of the things too that most people don't realize is that for a lot of these competitors, you're going to get more sore from your posing sessions than you are from your actual workouts because I mean the body is not meant to be flexed in that much of a state for that long of a time. But out of your bikini poses, what is your favorite pose to do and what is your least favorite pose to do?
My favorite pose is probably my back pose, just because my glutes are they're awesome right now. I mean, they're right where I want them to be, so it's super super easy. Um, my worst pose is probably my front pose, just because I can't manipulate it the right way yet. So I'm trying to work on that. So it's probably my least favorite.
Well, I always said if I ever competed, the back would be my favorite too, not just because it's my best body part, but also because you can let your smile down for a little bit. You can kind of relax because one of the big things that most people don't realize is that you have to have a smile on, especially if you're a bikini competitor, the whole time. Because we've had competitors from Australia on talk about how I let my smile down for like 15 seconds and I got docked points off for it. I mean, it's definitely an I mean, it's definitely not talked about as much as it should be. I mean, I always say your jaw muscles might be the most sore thing after a show, as opposed to anything else, just from keeping that smile constantly. But another thing that bikini competitors have to go through is walking in those damn high heels that I mean, I just say it's just unfortunate where I was like, don't these women haven't they gone through enough already that the figure and the bikini girls have to walk in those high heels? What has been your experience like with those high heels?
I love my heels. They're a little tricky at first because they're like the angle on them and the shape of the sole and all that. That was tricky, and I'm used to very like stiletto pointed toes. But other than that, I really do like my heels.
Okay, well, I was gonna say because I have found like I might even publish a paper on this. Is that women from the South vastly more comfortable wearing high heels? That like when I've had competitors on that are originally from like the southern part of the United States, vast more of the time they're just like, oh, I was born in high heels. They're fine with it. Where if I'm talking to people from around like Minnesota, Wisconsin, that type of area, where it's like I've never worn heels in my entire life. Now just wearing those, it was like they have to like wear them when they're like vacuuming and stuff like that just to get used to them. But yeah, so I have a friend he went to the University of Missouri and he's just the biggest. I mean, he lives in Kansas City now. He had to move, but yeah, I mean, I always give him crap about it all the time because I was a Nebraska football fan growing up, so I always give him a hard time for that. But yeah, I mean, those heels, bad enough already that what they make you guys go through, but adding on those heels, it's just like, oh my god, come on. But so what point in your journey did you meet Kelly? When were you introduced to her?
My like my actual coach, Dan, he um he introduced me to her because I needed a posing coach. So, and Kelly is very well known in my area and on the outskirts too. But she was recommended to me by him, and she came with me a few times to the gym, and she practices with me. It's awesome.
One thing that I found, especially with bodybuilders, is she as muscular as she looks in pictures in person?
Yes, she is insane. The first time I saw her, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, she's huge."
Well, that's one thing, especially for me being 6'3", where like if I were to meet some of these bodybuilders in public, where some of them are only like 5 feet tall, it kind of like adds, kind of like, oh, they're not so big. But some of them, yeah, you meet them and you're like, oh my god, they're even bigger than than I thought they would be in person. Yeah, I could definitely see Kelly being one of those because when she was on here, yeah, that was like her arms were basically almost taking up the entire screen, basically when we were talking to her. So yeah, it was
But she looks so good.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, absolutely, yeah. She is, and she was just such a great guest to talk. I mean, yeah, she's one of those. She's one of those examples that I like to use, where it's like you can do it in a right way and get like really, really big as a bodybuilder. Like that's the right way to do it. If you look at someone like Kelly Lynn, yeah, for sure. And that's so awesome. But going into these shows, I mean, a lot of times people deal with a lot of pressure and stuff, especially going up in front of a large group of people and posing. What have you been dealing with like that? Maybe some anxiety, or are you just ready to get up on that stage and start posing?
Um, I do have some anxiety every now and then. Uh, the finances of it are so expensive. I knew that going in, so I saved up a lot of money before I had done it. But still seeing the things that I missed to piece into my budget for this, that has given me anxiety. And it's all doable at the end of the day, but it's just like I am such a tight person with my money, so that was hard. And I think missing my meals, like having that fear there or having to risk missing my meals, that was hard. And the holidays were very hard. Having to go to people's houses and say, no, I can't eat that. And they feel insulted and then you feel really bad because you're like, because you don't want to tell them no. They're having you at their house and they made all this food for you. But I mean, you have to like tell them like, oh, I can't eat that. I'm sorry. Or I can't really go out to dinner unless I bring my meals, and none of my other friends are into the bodybuilding. So it was always very weird for them to see me bring my meals, and that kind of gave me a little bit anxiety, but now I just deal with it.
What have been your friends' overall reactions when you started really getting into bodybuilding?
Uh, I talk about it a lot, so they get pretty annoyed, but they're all very, very supportive at the end of the day. And if I feel like sometimes though, if I didn't have their support, I don't know if I would be here.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, we've had, it's been, 50-50 for guests that I have on if they have a really supportive family or a family that really, just like, oh yeah, you can do it, but like we won't really care that much. But yeah, that support, I mean, especially those long nights where you might be super depleted and you just got done with your last cardio session, it's just, yeah, you need that support. But one thing that I think differentiates bikini competitors from every other division is that you have to have your own sort of flair. You have to have your own sort of sass. Has that been hard for you, sort of finding that, or are you just naturally one of those people that has that little sass when they do their routine?
I feel that it comes very natural for me. I'm a very outgoing person, I feel like, so I think it's been very easy for me.
Mhm. Well, I can say I can definitely test that because for all the people that I've asked to come on my podcast, she was one of the quickest ones to come back and say, "Oh my God, yes, I'd love to do that." Where normally they're just like, "Oh, let me hear a little bit more about this." So I can tell that she's very outgoing just from that response in and of itself, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, it does. It takes a different type of individual, I think, to do bikini because we have had these bodybuilders come on where it's just they go through their posing but with bikini it's just so different. You have to have that sort of aura around you when you walk up on that stage to really if you really want to do good in the competition. But also when it comes down to this whole entire lifestyle and this whole entire journey, I mean, you're only going to go as far as you mentally want to go. What has that journey been like for you mentally? Because there's so many changes that you can do physically, and you can always convince your body to work out. I mean, that's always something that you can do. But the mental aspect of this is just so much more important, and it's so much harder for the competitors. And the general public, I don't think, doesn't realize that. What has it been like for you mentally to get adjusted to this life?
At first it was difficult, but I know that, I just gotta take each day as it comes and just keep it as simple as possible. Keep my thoughts together, keep my brain just calm. Um, I have found that just breathing through my cardio or just breathing through my workouts, that has helped me so much because sometimes, I just wanna quit and walk out, and I know at the end of the day that if I do that, I'll regret it.
Now that well, speaking of cardio, what is your relationship like with cardio? Because for me, I mean, like I told you before, you're gonna have to chase me with a knife if you want to get me to run. I mean, I used to have a girlfriend who was a marathon runner. Oh, hey Ron, you want to come out and run some miles with me? No. It's just a simple question. It's like no, you can do it by yourself. But so, what is your relationship with cardio like?
It's been a journey. At first, it was very, like, very negative. I used to hate cardio, but now I kind of look forward to it.
Hmm. Well, it's all about finding what cardio works best for you. For like, well, I should correct myself. When I say cardio, I mean I can go on bike rides for days. I mean that is my form of cardio, especially during the summer. Like now, I don't do cardio during the winter, but during the summer, yeah, work out early in the or like in the mid afternoon, then go for a bike ride after that. Right before I go, I work nights, so right before I go to work, then go for a bike ride. So yeah, I mean it's all about finding out what cardio works best for you. But what is one meal that you are just dying to have once you get off that stage?
Mm, probably some probably a burger and some french fries.
Any specific type of burger that you're craving?
Bacon. I want it to have lots of bacon and mushrooms.
Any place that you're thinking of, if you were to think of one place to go to.
Uh, Probably Applebee's.
That okay, so that's only like the second time that we've heard Applebee's on this podcast. You're gonna be like our 200th health and fitness guest. I always said if I ever competed, I would rent out a Five Guys and be like, "Here's $1,000. I'm gonna buy you out for the night. You're gonna feed me until I either pass out or throw up, or either way, I'm getting my money's worth." But yeah, that's just it. And that also brings me into, I mean, I know that you probably haven't experienced this yet, but one thing that so many people talk about on this podcast that is another myth that I love to bust is that, I mean, you're not going to be able to maintain that stage look 24/7. That's one thing that so many people deal with, especially during their first time competing, that they don't realize that, or they might not fully understand that, hey, this is the best that I'm going to look for a while, and I am going to have to put on weight. How are you preparing yourself for that fact that, like that look that I present on stage when I look at myself in the mirror for the last time before I walk on and say, holy crap, I look amazing. Like, I'm not going to be able to look that good until the next show that I do.
Um, that I haven't got there yet because this will be my first comp, but the fear is there because I want to be able to maintain this look forever if I could, but I know it's not realistic or practical. So I'm slowly learning to accept it.
I mean, I could give you 50 horror stories that I had in this podcast from people who have tried to maintain it for a little bit longer. Now, granted, there are some genetic freaks out there that can take a little bit longer to maintain that. I mean, we had one of them on the podcast where literally I was like, there's no way that you just look like that. I mean, there's no way that you just look like that just from working out. And she had a photo of herself when she was like 8 years old right next to her, and she showed it to me, and she had like an 8-pack, and I was like, okay, this is BS. I was like, this is BS. Get off my damn podcast. I don't want to talk to you anymore. But yeah, so there is those 1%ers, but yeah, generally, yeah, it is. And I like to, especially for the first time comparisons, you haven't competed yet. I just like to bring that out there because, yeah, that out of the amount of times that I've heard that, I mean, it's so hard for people to grasp that. But two questions that I love to ask all my health and fitness guests when they come on. I mean, for me, there were so many positive things that were when I started working out and getting bigger and stronger. But one of the negative things is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water or anything that's sealed on tight. You're just basically the go-to strength person. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next couple of months, and every single time they come home with the groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries, being the good son that I am. Have you found that that's a similar experience maybe among your friends or family, knowing that you are getting bigger and stronger, that they might ask you to do favors for them?
Not like that, but definitely they're always asking me for meal plans or for me to make workout plans for them or count their macros, stuff like that. But I'm not educated enough for that, and so I always have to tell them no because I don't want to risk, messing up someone else's body.
She's got the best of both worlds. She can work out and she doesn't have to worry about getting it. I always said too, for me though, also, being a guy is obviously probably the biggest thing when it comes to that. And being 6'3", I always said I could have zero muscle at all and it'd still be, oh, tall guy, come and help us move this, where it's just been a never ending struggle for me. But what question that, I mean, is my favorite question to ask, because when it comes to fit guys, I mean, there are clothing option problems enough with them, but for fit women, I mean, the moment you said that your shoulders were one of the things that really took off, the moment you said that your shoulders were the thing that really really took off, I always say, good luck with dresses. Then that's another thing that we really find is really hard to find. I mean, jeans are another thing too. If you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not made for that. So if you're competing, it's your wardrobe needs to be vastly different than the average person. And you basically have to have two wardrobes, your off season and your prep. But what are some ways that you have found that you're able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be very limited at times?
Um, Definitely with all the bridal showers and the bachelorette parties that I've been going to and the girl get-togethers, dressing up for it is a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I always said I had two fashion guys on the podcast, and if they could come up with just a fashion line for like fit people where it's like, fit, I don't
Right?
know, like fit jeans that stretch or something like that, like adjustable jeans or like leggings that were like jeans or anything like that. Absolutely, yeah, that would definitely be one thing that I would definitely love to embrace on this podcast. But if you could change one thing about the health and fitness lifestyle, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Daisy, we made the choice, you can change one thing about this lifestyle, and everyone would go along with it, what would be probably the one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh, um, I don't know. That's a good question. I really like the environment, honestly. I don't know if I would change anything. Maybe better support system for certain people, I guess. Accountability for each other, being a little bit more extra with that. I don't know. I have found a very good environment. I've been very lucky to have a positive environment around me that I just don't think I would change anything.
Well, that's what I say, especially about female bodybuilding. One of the reasons why I like to have females, I have males on the podcast too, but I mean, let's be honest. I always say, talking to two guys about bodybuilding, it's mainly just like this: hey, how much do you lift? And then the conversation's over. That's like two guys talking to each other about the sport. But with females, I mean, they generally do seem to care about each other, the other competitors, where I find it's one of those rare examples in sports where, I mean, you have each other's backs, and I mean, I just love that. and it's such a supportive environment. And the one thing I would change though is that, every day, 1,000 new fads. If they were to just stop with all these fads and just get back to the base, I mean, there are routines that people have been doing for hundreds of years that work for your body when it comes to losing weight or getting muscle. But every year there seems to be some new thing. I mean, I always remember the shake weight is probably the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened in in the history of fitness. When that first came out, I was like, in their pitch meetings, did they really think that that was a good idea? But yeah, there's always stuff like that coming out all the time. If they could just narrow it down, I think that would help out a lot. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, what are some goals that you'd like to have achieved? What are your current plans? Where would you like to be at a year from now? Not just in your health and fitness, but just in your overall life. What are some goals that you'd like to have if we were to talk a year from today?
Okay. I really want to get my personal training certifications. I want to be able to finally start school. After getting out of the military, it's been hard to find that balance. So I definitely would like to have some school started. Um, maybe my pro card if I can. That would be amazing. That would be a huge, huge accomplishment for me. But that is my goal right now, is just being able to get that.
Can I just say that, I mean, you are already ahead of 99% of my friends, because so are you gonna have the GI Bill for college?
Yeah.
So you're not going to be living at home basically till you're 30. So okay, at least you got that. At least you got that going for you. Because I trust me, I have plenty of friends that were like, oh my god, we're like 100 grand in debt, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're not good. Good luck recovering that. So yeah, at least you have that. So anyone out there, yeah, if you're thinking about joining the military, that's one of the biggest benefits that I can give you, is that you get the GI Bill. So yeah, that's great. Do you have any? Is there any college in particular that you're really looking into?
Probably USF.
USF. Yep. Well, I had a friend that went to. I actually had a friend that went to UCF. He graduated though, and then I had a friend that went to UCF, and then I had a friend that went to Florida State, and I went down and visited him once, and that was the weirdest weekend of my entire life. Those Florida people, I don't know how you guys like to party. It's just absolutely insane. There was an alligator right outside the front, right outside in the backyard, and it was.
Oh.
Oh my god! What is okay? So every guest that I have on from Florida, which is weird because my last three guests have all been from Florida. How many times or how often do you see alligators there? Because that's always been so fascinating to me.
I've never, well, I can't say never. I guess I've not seen them that recently. Um, my first house in Florida, though, we did have a lake in our backyard, and there was alligators in there, so we always saw them all the time. Or sometimes we'll see them like laying in the ditch on the side of the road, just kind of chilling. It's crazy.
I mean, yeah, we think we have it weird up here in Minnesota where, I mean, we just have deer and stuff like that and coyotes, but yeah, that's just so fascinating that they're just alligators just walking around in public, just doing their thing. But again, like we were talking about before, that's Florida. Florida's basically a country in and of itself that's also a part of the United States, if you really think about it. Think about it.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just like I always say the same thing. It's like Texas, California, and Florida are basically all separate entities, but they're just a part of the United States. But I mean, we're very well past New Year's, but we are just currently a few days past Valentine's Day. But one thing that I find, especially around New Year's, you get all these New Year's resolutioners, and I get sad thinking about it because there have been studies that have found only 10 to 20% of them really accomplish their goals, because so many times they go in there without goals set in mind, and then 2 weeks later they're like, oh, this hurts, my body's sore, so they just quit. But what advice do you have for people just getting started on their goals in order to help them maintain that? Because I find so many people, they just go so hard so early and they don't balance it out. But what advice do you have for people getting started?
Keep it simple. Just keep it simple. You don't have to be crazy with it. You don't have to go super, super hard, because then you're just going to get burnt out. Just keep it simple and be patient and be consistent, and you will be happy with your outcome.
Absolutely. Well, I'll give you my example. So this last week, I actually just got, or this week that I mean, it's a Sunday, but on this Monday, I started working out again because I took a month and a half off because I was just burned out and my body was just all sore and messy. So I only worked out twice this week. Then next week, I'm going to work out 3 times. Then the week after that, I'm going to work out 4 times, and I'm going to go up to 5 times. So I'm just making sure, because believe me, even though I took only a month and a half off, I mean, I was dragging my arms the first day after getting back in the gym. So just take it slow. A lot of times people just think, oh, if I go and work out an hour and a half, 5 times a week, the first week in there, it's like, no, your body is not going to be used to that. So just take it slow. That's definitely one thing that I would say as well. But again, you guys, Daisy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey. I mean, I really, really appreciate it. And I mean, just best of luck to you in your competition. So how many weeks out are you?
I'm 6 weeks out, but, also thank you for having me. I really do feel honored. I think it's really like, this when you messaged me, it was a very, like, "Whoa, this is really cool," 'cause, you interviewed some of my idols.
Oh, I mean, yeah, believe me. I mean, I was honestly like never really a fan of female bodybuilding until I started this podcast, and then I've really become a fan since then because just seeing all that they go through and everything like that, and I was a fan of guy bodybuilding a little bit, but just being a fan of just the dedication, the drive, and yeah, I've gotten ever since I've really gotten into it because I've been doing this for a year and a half now, and I've had some guests on like I had like Katie Leon, and that was a big shell shock to me where I was just like, oh my god, she's one of the big ones because I'd already been talking for like 6 months to other bodybuilders, but yeah, I love having people come on and share their stories and just proving that bodybuilders are just like people too. A lot of times people just think that they're an anomaly just because they work out so much and they're so muscular, but it's just like they're just normal people just like everyone else. They have a little bit more of a drive and dedication than most people have, and it like I always said, it takes a special type of person to bodybuild with that drive and dedication. But yeah, I mean, I just love having people come on and share their stories, and I love that you agreed to come on. And yeah, it's just so great. And you're one of the few people that I have on right before their first show, so I love to have that variety because it is awesome seeing someone mature. And I'd love to have you on a year from now, maybe with your pro card, maybe and just check in or whatever, just checking in and just seeing how you're doing. Because yeah, I mean, Kelly messaged me and she said, yeah, she's a really big up and comer. I said I would love to have her on. So we cannot thank Kelly enough. Again, shout out to Kelly. I'll probably have her on in a couple of months too because I like to have guests come on for second appearances. But again, Daisy, thank you so much for coming on. And everyone, go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. Got to give you guys a warning. You will be inspired to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies by looking at some of her posts. But again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.